So again, to reiterate what we have done in the initial classes, 1 and 2 is preliminary, 3 and 4 is admin and all that. Again, 5, 6 and all are basic relating to not really relevant. Then comes 7 is supply, meaning of supply and all that. 8 is your composite supply, mixed supply. 9 is your levy. 10 is composition scheme, composition, how to go for composition. Composite is different, composition is different. 11 is exempt items. So 11 is exemptions that we saw. That is a power to exempt. Not that under 11, it is a power to exempt to the council is given. 12 is time of supply for goods. 13 is time of supply of services. 14 is change in rate. Then what, how time of supply is getting affected? Time of supply. So basically time of supply, all these three come. Then we saw section 15 is valuation of supply. Please remember this. I'm again and again repeating so that you're very clear about these sections. If you remember like this, then it will be very simple. Today we are going to look at mainly 16 and 17. 18 is there, but 18 I will not cover immediately. You can read the middle. These are special circumstances for taking input credit. This one is the main section as far as how how do you qualify to take, how to, like what are the conditions for taking input tax credit. This is as far as section 16 is concerned. Here comes the main problem is blocked credits, and rule 42 and 43 will be discussing, under which there is something called apportionment of credit. So this is the basic thing that we are going to look at, this and this. This will not be looking too much because this still we have to understand properly, then only we can go into this. It's not difficult, but then better to understand this than go. Certain circumstances which how to take. For example, father is now giving the business to his son. So whether the input tax credit, how it will be available. Suppose you are having taxable supplies or exempt supplies, and then you are going to do taxable supply. So situations like that, when there is a change in the character of the business, how to take input tax credit, or from composition dealer to normal dealer. That means you were having a turnover of below 1.5 crores. You are registered under composition scheme under 10. Now you have crossed the 1.5 crores. Then how do you do? So all those things are dealt with section 18. So let us start with 16. Understand, mind you, again I'm telling you, in as far as GST is concerned, this is the most important chapter and everybody is grappling with this. This is the heart of GST. Very, very important. Because the way the government was uh, publicizing GST was seamless credit. Seamless credit is what it was saying. But you will realize that it's not at all seamless. There are lots and lots of issues. So when you do it, you'll understand. We find it so difficult to tell the clients, to understand, How to explain it to them? These are the provisions. Okay. With this background, I will now start the chapter. So, as I told you, what are the conditions for claiming exemption? Following conditions. We'll just first look at the conditions and then we'll go into detail. Registered person. That means he has to be registered. He has to issue a tax invoice. He has to upload the input tax credit. A lot of changes have happened during this period. That's why there's a lot to discuss in this. Then it should not be obtained by fraud, then it will get negated. He should have received the goods. Receipt of goods is important. Time limit. There is a time limit to avail input tax credit. Failure to make payment. If you don't make payment to the failure, no, where is it? Look. Receipt of goods. Time limit. Failure to make payment to the supplier. Sorry. If you don't make the payment to the supplier within a certain period, again you will not be eligible to input tax credit. Tax component of capital goods on which depreciation claimed will not be available. So 8 issues are there. We'll go into each one again and again detail. So number one, registered person. That means input tax credit is available only to registered person, registered under the GST Act. Moreover, it is available in respect of input supplies of goods, services which are used or intended to be used in the course of furtherance of business of the business or the person who wants to claim the input tax benefit of credit. So here itself, lot of things are very clear. For example, if you are using something which you are going to use at home, will it be available? It will not be available because it's not for furtherance of business. It is not in the course of business. It is not in the furtherance of business. Therefore, it will not be available. A lot of people were claiming left, right, and center, and there was no control. To avail the benefit of input tax credit, it should be credited to the input tax credit, electronic credit ledger. Now, what is credit ledger? It's a ledger with the department where the credit will come and fall. It's like a ledger account, your ledger account with them, with the GST authorities. So, number one, you should be registered. Number two, it should be in the course of business and it should be credited to the electronic credit ledger. Now, next one, tax invoice. The input tax credit will be availed by the registered person, including the input service distributor. Who is that? We'll come to that. Input service distributor, who is it? We'll come to that later. On the basis of the following documents. Number one, an invoice issued by the supplier. Suppose X, Y. X is supplying to Y. Y can take input tax credit only if X has issued an invoice. That is invoice issued by the supplier. Who is the supplier? X supplier. Y is the recipient. Y is going to claim credit on that. That means in the bill, value of goods 5,000. GST, I'm not breaking it up, say 750. So 5750 is charged by X to Y. So the 750 can be claimed by Y as input tax credit. An invoice issued when tax is payable by the registered dealer under reverse charge. Some cases, as I have explained again and again, reverse charge, I'm not going into detail, is he may have to pay the tax and again take input tax credit, and he may have to invoice and issue an invoice. A debit notes issued by a supplier, sometimes additional amount may be charged by the supplier because there is a variation in price. There also there can be an input tax credit benefit which can be also availed based on this. Bill of entry or a similar document issued by customs for assessment of IGST. So when goods are coming from outside India, when you are importing, the tax that you pay at the customs, that can also be available at input in the form of IGST. What is the document? Bill of entry. Then input service distributor is another thing I will tell you later. Don't confuse yourself now. So invoice for normal invoice, reverse charge means again invoice. It's a little different. Debit note means for difference amount the supplier is giving. That is the document. Bill of entry is for imports. Input service distributor invoice for input service distributor credit note. What else? Next, uploading. Next point. Input tax credit shall be availed. Now here lot of changes have happened. They said invoice, so I could take by invoice. Now input tax credit shall be availed by the registered person only if all the applicable particulars, specified rules pertaining to issue of tax invoice are containing in the aforesaid document, and the relevant information is uploaded in GSTR2 by such person. Which person? That X. X has to upload it. Our uploading of GSTR2 has been suspended. Now see, it is suspended since the commencement. The idea was, let me see if I can pull up one example, because it's time that, just give me a minute. I will just see if I can show you that. Okay, that I will discuss it little later, but let it go because otherwise it will. Now, uploading of GSTR2 has been suspended. Now, another restriction has come in 36.4, Rule 36.4, not section, has been inserted with effect from 9th October 2019. To understand the implication of 34, one has to understand the mechanism of filing GSTR1 by input supplier and reflection on this data in 2A. So this one we will come to a little later, but we'll look at the other things. So this whole thing we will discuss a little later after the break. All these things. All these things we'll discuss a little later. Let us look at other things. What are the things? Fraud. No input tax credit can be availed by the registered person in respect of any tax that has been paid in pursuance of any order where any demand has been confirmed on account of the fraud, willful misstatement, suppression of the fact. So any fraud that has happened based on which input has been availed, that will not be available, it will be negated. Receipt of goods, mind you, input tax credit is available only if the registered person has received the goods and service. For this purpose shall be deemed to be a registered person, has received the goods where the goods are delivered by the supplier to an agent or recipient or any other person in the direction of the registered person. If goods are delivered to such person before or during the movement of goods, either way of transfer or document or title of goods, otherwise shall be deemed that the registered person has received the goods. Now, let me just take an example, then you will understand. X I am taking and Y. X is supplying the goods to Y. Now there are two types of pricing that is done. I think I've discussed earlier FOB, CIF. Venus, do you remember this? FOB, CIF? Somewhere I would have discussed this sometime. FOB and CIF. FOB is free on board, and CIF cost, insurance, and freight. What is the meaning? That means when X is telling a price to Y, say rupees 90 per kg, what is the understanding of Y? Y will understand that the X will, I will get it here at my place for 90 rupees. So I don't have to pay anything more. But X is telling the price, and he's assuming that my price is as I give it here. After that, whatever is the cost, that is, what is the cost that incurs between this? One is insurance that has to be taken, especially for transporting, and freight. Cost anyway you have to incur. So when that happens, the transaction itself is wrong because they had understanding. Therefore, it is essential that they have to mention FOB what? It's a 90 rupees what? FOB. If it is FOB, it is clear to both parties that Y will have to incur the insurance and freight. As far as X is concerned, his job is done the moment he hands over to the agent of, because somebody is going to collect from X, right? Y will not come, he'll transporter, somebody will come, transporter or somebody. So the moment X gives it to it, the delivery is done. That is what you need to understand here also. When did the delivery take place? Y can take input tax credit when the delivery has taken place, when he has received it. So when did he receive it? That depends on the method of pricing. FOB means it is the moment it is handed over by X to this guy, Y has received it. CIF means Y has received it only when it comes to his go down here, CIF, because it's all the other things. Till the time X reaches it here, all the insurance cost, freight is on his account, and he has given a price which is including all this. Therefore, only when it comes here, then only the title will pass to Y, and only then he can take input tax credit. So that's the difference between both the two. So that why I had to explain this, because this is the reason that you should understand when the Y can take input tax credit, receipt of goods. But when did he receive the goods? Is it here at this point? Is it here at this point, or it is here at this point? Because it depends. FOB means it's here. CIF means it is here generally. So that's why this understanding is required. Okay. Now we go back to this. That's what all this is all about, that only. Okay, whatever I explained. When goods are against an invoice are in lots, then registered person shall continue to take credit upon receipt of the last lot or installment. Now here there is one problem. If it is received in lots, piece by piece, even though he is receiving it, X is sending it by piece, right? Only when this is the first piece, this is the second piece, this is the third piece, this is the first. Only when this comes can Y take the credit. When where goods against invoice are received in lots of or installments, the registered person shall be entitled to take credit upon receipt of the last lot or installment. Only when this comes, he can take the credit, full credit of all this. Till the time he gets a fourth one, he cannot take the credit. Please understand the provision very well. Tomorrow, if you understand this well, you will see, you will be able to guide your clients also well. Time limit to avail input tax credit. What is the time limit? Input tax credit is available as soon as the goods and services are received. That is what we saw just now. However, registered person shall not be entitled to take input tax credit in respect of any invoice or debit note for supply or goods after two dates are given. One is due date of furnishing the return under section 39 for the month of September following the end of the financial year under which invoice pertains, and furnishing of the relevant annual return. Two dates are there. So the normal last date is for annual return is 31st December of the respective month. So let us again take an example. Financial year 2019-20. Okay, let me write like this. Any invoice pertaining to this period can be received this is September month. What is the due date of filing the September month? 2010-2020. This is September return. For the month of September, the return for September can be filed by the 20th of 2020. Therefore, if you have not claimed an input tax credit here for this year, you can still claim it up to this period, or you have to file annual return. Normally, the last date for annual return is 31st 2020, right? Now, you need not file. You can file here also. You can file this annual return here also. Then this will be the last date. So what they have said, the maximum date you can, suppose you have not taken input within this period, you are not taken within this period, you can still claim for that year in the subsequent year, but maximum up to the return of September or date of filing the annual return. What is the date of filing the annual return? Normal date is 31/12. Beyond that you cannot file. But if you file, you can file earlier. Yes, you can file. So if you file here, then September is the last date. September means 20th of October. But if you filed earlier, say 31st August you filed, then it is before September. So this becomes the last date for taking input tax credit for the earlier year. This is theory. This is what is the law. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is all gone for toss. Because still, as far as annual return is concerned, 2018-19 financial year, what is the last date like this? It should have been filed. Let me write it clear. Yeah. So 2018-19. So from here to here, 2019 March, should have been filed theoretically by 2010-2019 or this 31st, whichever is earlier. So this was the maximum last date. This was the maximum last date. But unfortunately, because of all these problems and so much, it is still being extended. So now it is extended up to, I think, 31st December 2020. So you can imagine how much of extension has happened. It is extended till 31st December 2020. Here we are, totally out with dates. It's so confusing today. There are so many extensions, we are hardly able to manage it. So it's been extended up to 31st December 2020, I think. Just recently it came, I don't remember now. Okay, so that is the way it is prolonging because of the so many problems plus COVID and all that. So I hope you have understood this. So that is what is time limit. Now, X, so example for that, X is registered person. It has received goods or service on November 12, 2019. Eligible input tax credit is 1 lakh 12, November 2019. So we are talking about 2019-20. We are talking theory. Don't look at the actual what is happened. There is extension and all that. Credit of this input can be availed after November 12, 2019. However, it cannot be claimed after October 20th, 2020. So we are talking about this March, maximum September, the September month, 2010, 2020, or date of annual return of financial year. The due date is 31st December though. But again, don't worry because you cannot cross this line. So this is the line beyond which you cannot cross. This is the line beyond which you cannot cross. If annual return for 2019-20 is uploaded on December 31st, aforesaid credit can be on or before October 20th. Conversely, if annual return is uploaded on October 15th, the aforesaid date will be October 15th because it's before October 20th. Is it clear? There is a logic for this last date for claiming the input tax credit. Now, failure to make payment to supplier. Now, this is another headache. If above conditions are satisfied, the recipient of input tax credit, so in this case, X is supplying the goods to Y, but Y can take input tax credit only if he pays X X within 180 days. So you're gonna, sir, how will we know? Because he has got it this month. He has already would have taken the credit. No, can he has he to wait for 180 days and then claim credit? No, it's not like that. If the above conditions are satisfied, the recipient of input service can avail the input tax credit as soon as the goods are received and relevant amount is credited to the electronic credit ledger. Law requires that the recipient of input goods service should make payment to the supplier within 180 days from the date of issue of the invoice by the supplier. If the payment is not made within 180 days, input tax credit will have to be reversed. This rule is not applicable in case of supply is obtained. So that means he has to reverse it will not be as without considering in case of 4 and 14. From this rule, this rule is not applicable in case of supply. Wait one second. In case of a supplier's obligation met by the recipient as the relevant provision explained in the case study. So let us look at the case study. X, a registered person under GST, has received goods and service from A Limited, wide invoice dated July 20th, 2018. Value of input tax supply is 1 lakh. GST on that is 18,000. The input tax credit should be credited in the electronic credit ledger. Is credited to the electronic credits. X avails the credit for payment of September 2018. Law requires that X Limited should make the payment of 1 lakh 18. That is 1 lakh plus 18,000. So what he has to do on or before January 16, 2019. That is 180 days from July 20th. See, from the date of invoice, 180 days. The following consequence should be noted if X makes the payment after January 20th, 16, 2019. Suppose actual payment is made on May 2019. X will have to show 18,000 as output for February because January month is a problem. So it's output February he has to show. This information will have to be uploaded in the return of February. X Limited will have to pay interest at the rate of 18% from July 20th till the date of payment of 18,000, because he should not have got that credit, he has availed it, but then it is back calculation, because you take it, then if you don't pay, then you go and reverse it and pay the interest because you're not entitled to that. But again, he has paid on May 18th, 2019. X Limited can re-avail that 18,000 as input tax credit on May 18th, the date of actual payment of 1,18,000. Time limit discussed in balance will not be applicable for utilization of this. There's no time limit for this. As and when you are doing it, it will be there. So again, I'm trying to going to explain it with an example. X supplies to Y on July 20th, 2019, and he claims Y claims credit for that in August 2019. Now what happened? This payment should have been made within 6 months. July 18th. So January 2017 it should have been paid. 2020. January 2017, sorry. Jan 17th. By that date, it should have been 2020, it should have been paid. So it was not paid. Therefore, the 18,000 which credit was taken here will be reversed as output, and he has to pay back that money. Not only he has to return back that money, he has to add interest at the rate of 18% from this date to this date. That is 6 months. Not this date, from this date. I think this date he has to add. From August when he availed it, from that date, 18%. But later on, he has paid the money in May 2020. So in the month of May, he can reclaim it. He can reclaim that amount. Now, this is a law. I can only tell you the law because the law is such that it is so difficult to follow today. Therefore, so here he has to pay interest at the rate of from July 20th. So it is from the date, yes, not August when it was uploaded. This information, when did he upload it? In September. See, September only he has availed, but he has to pay the interest. There's something mistake, no? Yeah, okay. No. So July 20th onwards, when he got it in the electronic credit ledger, from that date itself he has to pay, not from September when he availed it. Okay, so you have to be careful. The last part of this thing is capital goods on which depreciation is claimed under income tax. Where the registered person has claimed depreciation on GST component of the cost of capital and plant and machinery under provision of income tax, input tax credit on GST component shall not be allowed. Again, I will explain with an example. Now, that's very silly, but then suppose you buy a machinery for 1 lakh. GST on that, CGST, SGST, whatever, is 18,000. Total you paid 1 lakh 80. Now try to understand, if you are going to claim this 18,000, we'll be looking at whether you can claim or not. That's another thing. Is a capital goods. Therefore, if you are claiming, what entry you will pass? Machinery account debit 1 lakh. Input GST account debit 18,000 to supplier 1 lakh 18,000. It's a normal entry. So when you are going to claim input tax credit, you will never debit the machinery with that amount. So you will not be claiming depreciation. Right? Though the question of depreciation doesn't come here because you're going to capitalize only this much. Whereas what they so we are not brought it in the we have brought it in the input account, we are not taken it. Now suppose you are not going to claim input tax credit, what entry you would have passed? You would have passed machinery total 1 lakh 18,000 to supplier 1 lakh 18,000, and this includes the GST component. On that you would have claimed depreciation also. Now, how will I claim input when I am not put it in the input account itself? Is something and then saying no, you cannot claim input. Now the question is, I will not claim because I am not debited. So somebody who has drafted has got no idea about accounting, and based on that they have done. But they may have their own reason. They're saying no, somebody may still claim, that's why you should not do it. Probably that's the reason why they may have considered it. But frankly, as per accounting norms, if you are taking into machinery account the input tax also and claiming depreciation on that, there is no question of claiming input because you're not claimed it here. That is a difference that you need to understand. So based on this, we'll just read it, the provision again. Just see. Where the registered person has claimed depreciation on GST component of the cost of capital goods and plant and machinery and the provision of the thing, input tax credit on said GST component shall not be allowed. Now, how we will not be claiming? No, because we are not taking to input tax credit at all. Just for abundant precaution, somebody who doesn't understand accounting must have thought about it. Okay, so I'll just stop for the timing. We'll have to proceed further, and we'll meet at 8 o'clock and then discuss it.